Men, do you ever feel like you just can't get ahead? Like you're misunderstood? Like you have no one to talk to that truly hears you?
And women, are you often frustrated, hurt, and saddened in your relationships with the men in your life?
What if there were a community of like-minded men going through the same challenges that would support, hear, and understand what you're going through?
Working together in unison to create understanding, intimacy, and strong connections. That's the Way of the Illuminated Warrior.
Way of the Illuminated Warrior talk show is a forum of candid conversations for men and women about men. Heard every Thursday at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. Eastern Time on Dream Vision 7 Radio Network. Being a man today is not always easy. Until now.
Welcome to another adventure of the Way of the Illuminated Warrior talk show, where my guest today is Peter Steckel, a friend and brother energy worker. How you doing today, Peter?
Hey, I'm doing great. Great to be here, Waska. Thanks for inviting me.
All right, thanks for being here. And as I had told you when I invited you on the show, these shows are candid conversations for men and women about men. So the things we're going to discuss really relate to everybody. Women can benefit from them as well. I feel that it helps with the relationships as well as communication. And we're going to talk about well-being because that's what my experience with you is all about. You're an energy worker, you do Qigong, and I'll let you speak to a little bit more about that. So before we dive in, why don't you introduce yourself and where your head's at and how you got into doing the energy work that you do?
Yeah, sure. My career in the healing arts didn't start until back in around 1990, and at the time I was working as a geologist, as a professional geologist, and I had a job that was pretty much what people would give their IT for. I was enjoying a lot of time out in the field. In nature, I was mapping the geology. I was doing a lot of exploration, using different techniques, using drilling and seismic refraction. And my whole work at that time was exploring what's underneath the ground to find where the aquifers were, where the water, the groundwater was, and be able to map those areas. So I was using a lot of techniques to kind of get that three-dimensional look under the ground. But there was a time that while I was in that profession that I had a really interesting encounter with my grandfather. And I went to go visit him one day, and he took me out in his backyard and he put a pair of dowsing rods in my hand. And he said, here, we got to go find where the septic tank is. And I says, I don't know how to do this thing. What do you want me to do, Pops? And so he said, here, let me give you a shot of dowsing energy. He grabbed my hand, and together we walked. He had one dowsing rod, I had the other. It was these L rods, brass L rod. So as we walked, all of a sudden we came over a patch of the ground, and the dowsing rod flared open, and he said, Peter, this is exactly where it is. And so we, from that moment on, he kind of piqued my curiosity. Here I am, a geologist. We look at all this stuff from science, and so from that moment on, I kind of started following him around, and we walked all kinds of different fields and different terrain, and we were picking up all kinds of information. He said, here, this is where water is crossing another water vein. This is where you could drill a well and get lots of water. And I said, well, how do you know this? How do you know all this stuff? He says, I don't know it, I feel it.
Yeah.
And I said, well, you feel it, huh? And he said, yeah, but the dowsing rods feel it too. And that kind of gives me an idea of when I hit the jackpot. And so from that moment on, it kind of brought enough curiosity in me that it took me to a whole nother dimension in my work as a full-time hydrogeologist. And I said, if he can do it and he's got this confidence, what if I started doing this myself and I'm exploring for groundwater, these big reservoirs of water, would I be able to find them? And you know, in hindsight, looking back, I had the the advantage of I had a drilling rig where I could drill and
Mm,
test all the different things that I was getting. So I could say, is there really water here? And and then I could also use all the seismic geophysical methods to use that and see if there's water. And so, and the upshot was that over time, now when I started off, I didn't get very good at dowsing. I was very, hit or miss. I was kind of like sometimes I get it, sometimes I wouldn't. And so I scratched my head and said, maybe there's something to it, maybe there isn't. But I continued with it. I persisted, and then over time, this was over maybe a couple of years, I started getting like more successes than not.
mm,
And I started to see how this dowsing was even better than all the drilling and all the geophysical testing equipment that I was given. So I started building this like a trust muscle, if you will. I could trust it.
yeah.
And from there, it kind of like I said, there was something that shifted my whole career from geology and groundwater and aquifers to the healing profession when I had this profound experience when I was going to work one day. And that kind of set it made me look inside myself and say, what is my heart really wishing for what it wants to do in the world? And so I had a 180-degree turn from this science-based geology to entering the healing profession and the healing arts.
Wow.
And that was about 1987 when that happened.
Very interesting. A lot of things come to mind hearing you speak about that, because I feel a lot of metaphor in there and a lot of synchronicity into what you were doing and what you are doing. So the geology, the dowsing, and for those who don't know what dowsing is, it's using these metal rods to actually locate elements, whether it's water or whatever it is, beneath the surface, which is another metaphor, beneath the surface. So you're feeling, which I love that you mentioned feeling. That's a lot of the work that I talk about with the guys that I work with. Stop thinking so much and feel.
Yeah.
So you were feeling for the energy, feeling for the water in this case, and really kind of connecting the dots through the dowsing, through your intuition, through your heart space, and moving from the geological work that you were doing, you were going deeper and going underneath the surface, so to speak, that metaphor of the healing work. So in some senses, you're doing this geological work, really with an intention to inquiry and to find out what's going on underneath the surface for education, for healing, for other aspects. And it's the same thing now with your healing work, which I'm going to ask you to speak about. You're going beneath the surface. You're feeling, you're dowsing to a degree when we're doing that kind of energy work, and feeling and intuiting and connecting all those dots to do the healing work on the human being, on the well-being of people. So speak about that connection, because I think it's really profound how you went from something that seems like it's very different to something that really correlates to the human aspect of it.
Yeah. Well, it's really bizarre because there's always been this strong desire to probe the depths, to really get to the core of something. So whether it was out in geology or now the human body or the human energy field, it's that curiosity to explore through to me, it was the feeling sense that opened up, this feeling sense that then connected to the knowing. But the feeling came first, which was like the heart. The heart sort of opened up. And so what I saw is, so through that, I went into a whole program of training with different healers. One was Dr. Gabriel Cousens. He's a well-known holistic physician. He works out of the Tree of Life Rejuvenation Center in Arizona, Patagonia, Arizona. So I spent 12 years working with him, learning about holistic medicine, how herbs and how nutrition could restore the body and connect with the healer within. And then I learned about biochemical imbalances and psychological issues that would be, emotional traumas or trapped emotions, how these all impacted health. And then once you identified it, what do you do about it? How do you start turning that around so you bring a correction to some unhealed wound that could have been some childhood trauma or even an ancestral issue that you may have inherited. So I learned how to work in that world, and it started opening it up so it was more than just the physical body, but it was kind of like into other dimensions, recognizing that the emotions is one dimension, and then we go beyond into some of the spiritual aspects that could carry, some kind of a glitch that carries through in the DNA from our ancestors, and it gets inherited and passed on. So through my work with Gabriel Cousins, I did a lot of healing work on myself, and then I started branching out and helping other people with that same holistic medical, knowledge. But it was after that that I said, a lot of this, the emotional work and the deeper spiritual work happens through the heart. So I had this strong desire to learn from somebody who worked in that modality, if you will. And so I went out to Arizona to another place called the Heart Awakening School, which was in Sedona at the time. And I studied with a man, Raul Bertrand, and he was the founder of the School of Heart Awakening, which is a 3-year school in spiritual healing all around connecting with the heart, awakening the heart, and tapping into that as a way of healing, from the inside out, being in that place. So it's basically opening you to this field of unconditional love, where you feel safe, you're held in that space, which is basically, it's inside us all, except if we don't put our attention there, we get caught up in all the noise and all the confusion and all the static, so this is kind of bringing you back to home base, to feel that stable place of where you are, embraced in love, and it's inside all life. Really, it's inside all life.
Yeah.
And when we connect that to that place, that's when the healing starts. We start to connect with the healer within. Yeah. And so I learned that, and then I was able to use that with the nutritional model, the holistic model, the whole psychological model to bring healing to those issues. And so it kind of worked together with that. So, I ended up teaching there at the school after I graduated, and that was a whole nother experience, working with people that were genuinely, everyone comes in there with some kind of a wound or some kind of...
we're all wounded, right? We're a society of traumatic beings.
We are walking around with these things, and we don't even know it. What gets us triggered? Why are we getting so triggered when this happens? And so, I just love, because everyone is like a library of information. Everyone's unique in terms of how they contain that information. So it was a beautiful experience out there in the desert for 3 years working with that, and then I went on and I studied with 4 Qigong masters after that, and this was a really inspiring time in my life where I got to really dive into something that I love, connecting with the forces of the earth and the heavens, and bringing that into the body so the body feels more alive, more connected, just more free and grounded. Really.
Yeah, we're tapping into who we are, our true essence, when we get to that point.
Yeah. So that to me was a major shift, and I'm still studying with these Qigong masters because there's this always evolving. They're evolving, I'm evolving. I'm always getting something out of it. I pass on things to them, and so it's an exchange that's constantly growing. And I just love the work, and I love being out in nature practicing. So it's just so fun.
Yeah, yeah, those are some beautiful points, and I feel you on that. Again, the feeling, which is very important
Yeah.
for all of the quote unquote work, the spiritual work, the interpersonal work, the work that we do with others. And you mentioned the Anahata, the heart, which is
Yep.
so key. I recall when I was in New York, we did our Illuminated Warrior circles in person. This is before I moved down south and COVID happened and all. So we would get together, which I love, sitting in circle with guys that we could really connect eye to eye, heart to heart.
Yeah.
And part of the practice and what we were working on was the chakra system. So we went through from the root chakra, the Muladhara, up into the Anahata, the heart, and we would do one energy center, one chakra per month. And we stayed on the Anahata, the heart, for I think at least 3 months, because it's a place that I think there's a lot of confusion, a lot of miscommunication, a lot of not really being in touch with who we are, because we are heart-based beings, even though sometimes it may not seem that way with the things that are expressed through frustration and anger and all the things that block our energy, that block our chakras, that work like Qigong and other energy medicine can help to unblock and alleviate. So I love that you brought that up about the heart, because that's, to me, that's really the center, literally and figuratively, of the work. Even going back to doing dowsing. I mean, I feel we're using our heart, we're using our intuition, which is usually known as a sacred feminine aspect. Again, working with the guys, sometimes our intuition as men is dulled down, if you will, a little bit, because we're the hunter gatherers and we're out there, we're fixing things, we're building things, we're getting her done, whereas the women are home and they're more heart based, they're more, I don't want to say more sentient, but they are more in the feelings and the empathy and the intuition more innately, I believe. And I believe that guys need to get back to that work a little bit more. So my experience with Qigong, I studied back in the 90s, really tapped me into my heart space, because I felt through a lot of different, the postures, the stances, and the energy, and especially doing it with other people, that a lot of the work we did was connecting to the heart. And that was very healing for me. And then getting into working with other people, which I'm going to ask you about, using that heart space of connecting with self, connecting with Gaia, with Mother Earth and Father Sky and everything in between, using that universal energy as well as our own, intuition, our balancing, our heart space, and using that for healing work for others, I think is essential. So how do you feel about that? Tapping into your own connection to, again, Mother Earth, Father Sky, and your own heart space when you're working with other people for healing.
Yeah, well, that's the primary mode that I use. So, I see the heart as the gateway. And when we can tap into that, we start having access to all the different parts of our body and to the things that nourish us as a holistic temple in a body. So the gateway is the heart. And when you start having that opening of the heart, you have a way to connect to every cell of the body, because within every cell is almost like there's a heart within that cell that you can start to connect with. It's all linked. It's like, yeah, that's right. It's all linked.
We'll be right back after this. Hey guys, this is Waska. Listen, if you're hearing my voice, there are no coincidences. Are you ready to get unblocked and take the next step forward, whether it's with relationship issues, finances, or just moving into the next phase to elevate yourself? Listen, bros, this is what I do. I'm here for you. Drop me an email at Waska, that's WASKA, at illuminatedwarrior.com. We will work on this together and take you to the next step. I promise you'll be glad you did.
And when you've got that ability to make communication to the brain and to, the different parts of the body that we want to access through the heart, it's like you're able to bring light back into places where it hasn't been before, and that's where we start connecting with the healer within. It's healing because we're putting attention on something that has already been inside of us. And then wherever attention goes, energy follows.
Yeah.
So that light will come bright. It'll start filling up those voids, and it'll start, carrying over into other areas of the body. So, it's like it's like coming back to your natural self, really, and with it comes energy, and with it comes health. That's all I can say. And clarity as well. All these things start coming back. But for me, it's always been the heart has been a gateway, because it links to so many other things.
Yeah, such a good point. And I love that you said that, because it is very true that, what we think about is what we manifest. It's a law of attraction. Whatever we put out there, that's what we're going to get. So I think it's very important to, speak very clearly. Like if you're in prayer or ceremony or in your everyday conversations, be very clear on what it is that you're intending, because your intention, just like you were saying, that intention, that thought, that energy is what we're going to attract, and I think that happens a lot of times where there's blockages in the body or in the heart or in any part of our existence, where we're putting out intentions that we may not even realize. You hear a lot of times like the mindset of abundance as versus the mindset of lack, and even if your intention is to be of prosperity, of an abundance, but you're focusing on, well, I don't have this, I don't have that, I got to get that, I want that, I need that, and that's the energy. That may be perceived as a mindset of abundance, but the universe hears it as a lack mentality, because the universe, in my understanding, only knows yes. So when you put out very clearly, this is what I am intending, this is where my energy is going, where my attention and intention is, that's what's going to come back to us. And I've proved it to myself, and I've seen it so many times over and over again, So we need to stay positive, which I'm a huge proponent on positivity. A lot of the guys I work with, they're in recovery, a lot of them, and the negativity is there when they're just really trying to get back to even a place of stasis. And I'm like, just if you have to fake it till you make it, positivity. Start your day with prayers of gratitude. Be acknowledging what you have, because if we all have breath in our lungs, we have something to be grateful for. So
and that becomes, I know from my own self, when I was in the depth of pain, it was harder to put my attention on the positive, because when you're in pain, you just want to get out of it, right? You want relief from that pain. But I know when I was in a place where I was very sick for a while, I was going into the hospital, and I had cancer. I had cancer in my own GI tract, and it reached a point where I had to say, what is it that's going to keep me positive, on a positive track forward, to bring me out of this experience. And so, as I was in the hospital, I got all this, treatment from the doctors, from the nurses, and I saw them as allies at the time. I didn't make them the enemy. I said, at least I'm in some hands here that are going to try their very best to keep me well. But as soon as I was out of the hospital and back home, I said, what can I do to get back into this really positive, healthy place? Okay. And so the pain was there, but I would allow myself to go to a place beyond the pain, deeper within, and to a very quiet place. And it's like these 3 S's come to mind. It's like slow down, go softer, and go smaller. Those 3 S's. So it's like it was time to quiet down and not be so looking at all the external noise out there, but to slow down and what is it that I feel inside my body? And I listen. When I listen to the quality of my heart, and I feel that quality of heart, it was like a little ember at the time, but it started to get brighter and brighter because I was listening to it. And eventually it started, like I said, cascading into other parts of my body. And that kept me, giving me more hope and more positivity, and it pulled me out of that situation.
Yeah, if I could just add something to that, I love that the 3 S's, smaller, softer, smaller, softer.
Oh yeah, smaller, softer. I even forgot it
Just
myself.
went out of my brain.
Yeah. It'll come to me.
Okay. Well, what I was thinking about that was the listening part, because when I was going to this Tai Chi Qigong yoga school, the most profound thing to date that I learned to really imbibe was to be still, be silent, and listen. Which kind of speaks to what you're saying. Same thing. Be still. The stillness in the motion even was the name of the school, actually, stillness in motion. But the stillness of meditating, of just going in internally, of really allowing the world to stopping the world, slowing everything down. I think that was it. Slow down, softer, slower, smaller. Of allowing that to happen. Being still, being silent. Because there's so much external and internal monkey mind chatter. All that goes on. And just listening, because again, tapping back into the heart, when we listen, our heart speaks to us in small and huge ways of what's going on within this, and we can't help ourselves to heal. So I love that you threw those 3 S's out there, and it just reminded me of that most profound thing that I've learned is to be still, be silent, and listen. And I believe that speaks to yoga, to meditation, to any practice that we're really just being in the moment, being present, and really taking in what the universe is offering us. Because we're always getting messages from Mother Earth, from Father Sky, from the elementals, from the energies that are surrounding us, from our ancestors, from our spirit guides. But how much of the time is it like we're being bombarded by this and by the external noise, and we're not being softer, we're not being smaller, we're not slowing down, we're not being still, we're not being silent, and we're not listening. So those are very simple things that we could do to really tap into that heart space and to help to heal ourselves. So I think that's really important, and I'm glad you triggered that to come out in me as well.
Yeah. So one of the things that I do when I gather with people that want to learn Qigong is we get into listening with the body. When we listen to the bones are always communicating something to us. So when we connect with the bones, we develop a relationship to the bones, they start giving us information, and we start to have a felt experience of when we're resting on the bones and the load or mass of the body is carried by that skeleton framework. It has a certain feel. And then there's a feel for when the tendons and the muscles, when we listen to them, what does that feel like? And what does it feel like when they're lengthened and we're just in a place of openness and allowing, where we're resting on the skeleton, and that's keeping us, upright. So there's ways of listening, even inside the body, that we can develop, through getting together, putting our attention on something that's already inside of us. And once we do, it strengthens, it becomes like another muscle that then keeps you, like you said, out of the monkey mind, right? And then we have an ability to tap into more easily the heart, into the quality of what a heart wish really feels like, a genuine heart wish that's different than what a mind thought wish is, which can be very much maybe ego-driven, has much stronger ego-driven kind of a thing. I want that red car, I've got to have it, versus, I just feel like, I've got the transportation that brings me everything that I need, and it's always here, it's always available, and it runs, it's efficient, it works, and I'm happy with it.
Yeah, and it's the thinking versus the feeling again, right?
It's the feel, yeah, it's absolutely, yeah. So when the mind tries to override the heart, it puts a blockage in that healer within to give you what you're really wanting. So we put like a dam in front. When the mind overrides, it just feels like it usually does it because it's in fear. It's in fear, and it feels like I have to put so much effort in this to get what I want. But it's opposite of that. It's this place of allowing, where you fall backwards and let go and allow with that heart wish that thing is given to you. It's the ultimate place of trust.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Well, and it's like the difference between force and power. Force is like exerting your will over something, whereas power is the way I look at it anyways, an internal thing that we could utilize to influence or to create or heal even. So that really makes a big difference. So yeah, and it's tapping into that intuition also, and the intuition is also in our second gut, as we call it. You and I have talked about this before, between the solar plexus and the sacral chakra also. I mean, that gut, which, the gut biome, the microbiome is so important. The health of our second brain, as it's called, is really key, I believe, to healing as well. And again, I think it comes a lot down to the intuition of what we call this energy medicine, of not thinking as much from here, but feeling more from the, the Dantian, from Hatha, from, using that energy, that chi, that life force that comes really more from the heart space and from the other alignment of our chakras, of our meridians, and that's what this energy medicine really is all about. Learning to do it for ourselves, whether it's through qigong or yoga, therapeutic touch, tai chi, whatever it is, is balancing, which is something I have a lot of conversations with my brothers or people that are on the show. To me, balance is so key, because if we go too far one way or too far the other way, it's not. We don't have that homeostasis. We don't have that balance. There's no symbiotic relationships. It's just, it weighs on us, and I think that causes dis-ease as well, So let's talk a little bit about the balance of emotionality, of feelings, of nutrition, of mindset. Like, where's your thought process and your feeling process in that regard?
Yeah, well, there's so many components to health. And I was fortunate enough to work with this doctor out west, Dr. Klinghart, and he has developed this model on these 7 aspects that are fundamental to health. And when you bring them into balance, you're going to have health. So I've used that model, and then through my own work, I recognize an 8th factor that contributes to health, which is more of a spiritual element to it than what he comes from more of a medical background, and I'm kind of tapping into the spiritual realm as well. So that aspect, but so there's the what we're all faced with. One of the major factors is just how do we deal with toxins that we're exposed to in the world, and how do we, because we're constantly dealing with not only chemical toxins, but we're dealing with biological toxins, parasites, and now we've got all this stuff with bacteria and viruses and so on. So this is kind of like, how do we develop enough within ourselves and in our relationship to these different factors of toxins, so that if we do take them in, how do we release them efficiently and effectively? What are the pathways of elimination, and how do we open those so that we can easily release whatever we're taking in, so it doesn't accumulate? We're not storing this stuff in the body, and in the sensitive areas, the brain, and so on. So that's a big one. Everyone on the planet's facing that one right now, and all the animals are too. So you got to put some attention there to keep that balance going.
Yeah, if I could just add to that, if you don't mind, I totally agree with you that, and I think that's just being accumulated more and more and more, especially with the stresses that are going on today. And a lot of the work that I do with the community that I'm involved with is back to nature, which you and I have connected through nature on our hiking and just being out there. And it's so important. And you don't even have to live in quote unquote nature, in the woods, in the forest. There are ways to do it. And I find that people who are not even that adept at any of these practices can still find healing within it. So, I tell guys just to go out on the land, go out in a quiet field, hopefully that where there's not a lot of, pesticides being sprayed. If you could get into the forest, if you could get around a grove of trees, lay on the earth. Like, how many times, do you just go and just lay back, feel your body being supported by Mother Earth, because she really is the mother of all of us. I mean, she's a sustainer of everything and everyone. And contrary to popular belief, this is what a Native American elder had shared, and not the only one who shared this, that don't be so concerned about saving Mother Earth. Okay, she's she's fine. She will do fine. If she needs to spit us all off, she will spit us all off to keep thriving. And you see, even from this pandemic, how quickly she heals. Okay, we're the parasites on Mother Earth, but that's a whole other topic. But we could get into nature, whether it's laying on the earth, it's being in a grove of trees and breathing that oxygen that's being supplied by the trees, the one-legged praying people, as my Native brothers and sisters call them, and just tapping in and really, not to be cliche, putting your arms around a tree, touching the bark of a tree, touching plants that have natural healing properties that we might not come in contact with. So instead of spraying our hands with antibacterial, foaming gel, which kills all of the good bacteria as well, touch a plant, touch the ground, touch the earth, pick it up in your hands, right? I mean, the bacteria, there's literally billions of types of bacteria in the earth that support our health and wellness. So anyway, just to come full circle with that, there are ways that we could actually heal that we don't need to even go to a doctor. We could be in connection with Gaia, with Mother Earth, and tap in and enjoy the bounty that she's offering us.
Yeah. No, all of that is key because, you mentioned before about the gut and the microbiome. Mm-hmm. Well, when we're out in nature and we're connecting to all the energies that's coming off the leaves and the bark and the moss and the lichens, and all of that has information that feeds our microbiome and creates diversity. And it's that diversity that creates a strong immune system. So when that microbiome is stimulated by taking a forest bath, if you will, that's the best thing for you to boost your immune system to a whole nother level. And if you can get out, on a clear night and there's stars out, or you see the moon, that energy too has an effect on your immune system. And even in some of the agriculture, Rudolf Steiner, he has this biodynamic way of farming, and they would purposely, use some of the energies from the stars, the planets, the sun, moonlight, to bring that, into their fertilizers, into their preparations for the soil. And so that is what we need too in our body, to get out into that, not just to be in artificial light, in a house all the time. That's why camping is so good.
And air conditioning. How toxic is that? Like being in an enclosed room with circulated air. Yes, you have filtration and all, but it's very different. Like you're saying, the lighting, natural UVB light, and air, like fresh air. I mean, we need to breathe in all sorts of different, we hear bacteria, or it's good for us. It's actually good. It builds the immune system back up, being in contact with these things, and touching it, feeling it, breathing it, as opposed to being in what we may perceive as a sterile environment, which is anything but.
Yeah.
So,
And the other element, that it's helping us to get a little break from is the radiation and the EMF, the extremely low frequency radiation, from all the devices that we're exposed to.
Put my blue blockers back on. That's why I wear these. They are a little bit of readers, but they also have the blue blockers that
screen. That's great. Yeah. I mean, that's all part of it. It's like, because I do feel that as we connect more to that feeling of the divine that's in us and in all life, we are being supported to protect ourselves from some of this radiation that we're exposed to. And I think the more you drop into that as a place that you hang out with more and more of the time, that natural protection will develop and strengthen.
Yes.
But it's still a factor. All this radiation that we're exposed to, now the 5G and satellites, all this is a factor that I feel is a big trigger to why we're seeing the the COVID thing going on, and people's sensitivity to it to certain levels. So I feel like that is going to be an ongoing stress, but we have a way, I feel, an internal way, connecting to the heart, connecting to the space of love that's inside us all, and allowing that to continue to develop and spread into the body, where these other frequencies that are harmful have less and less of an effect.
We'll be right back after this.
Do you sometimes feel down, lost, or lonely? Are your finances feeling sluggish? Can your relationships use a healthy tune-up? Don't fear, bro. Help is here. Experience the benefits of connecting with other men who are going through similar challenges. Be supported in our safe, sacred, and inspiring monthly telecircle with the Brotherhood of the Illuminated Warriors. Connect with Waska for one-on-one mentoring with the first session completely free. What have you got to lose? Check out illuminatedwarrior.com or send an email to waska@illuminatedwarrior.com. You're invited to step up your game and join us. You'll be glad you did.
So it's like the medicine that heals just about everything, is coming back inside the heart, feeling it, deepening the connection, developing the software of how you do that so that you can drop into it quicker and quicker and get the results, And because these are things that are not just going to go away tomorrow, these stresses,
Yeah.
So how do we exercise internally to develop that connection so that we are, able to not just survive, but thrive, during these times?
Yeah, I love that. And you talking about the medicine. I mean, really, the only difference between something that's medicine and something that's poison is how we're taking it, the quantity that we're taking, and really back to the intention and all. Because really, you could take a quote unquote medicine that's healing, or you could take the same medicine that's actually poison, and it could, cause disease or even death. And I think it ties into what we're talking about, like tapping in to the heart. And I don't. Sometimes these practices are considered esoteric, which you could look at them as esoteric. But as one of my mentors, Ocean of Fast Wolf would always say, she's like, don't take my word for it. Do it yourself. Feel it. See how you feel from doing it. And I just had this conversation. I was invited to somebody else's show recently. She was talking about, she considers herself a light worker, which, she is. She's an astrologer and she does healing work. All these other quote unquote light workers were just ganging up on her. Well, you can't do this. You can't say this. You can't be that. And she was asking me, as someone who's, involved with this type of energy work as well, how do I feel about it? And I just said to her, like, listen, listen, listen to your heart. Okay. And I just went through the questions that she asked me. Okay, where in your body are you feeling this? When somebody tells you, no, you're wrong, don't do this. Well, my heart's constricted. And how do you feel when you're hearing like, well, you're not a light worker, but you're a charlatan or this or that? Well, my stomach gets all tightened up. So point being is, I fully believe getting back to that cohesiveness of combining the sacred feminine and the divine masculine, which we all have, tapping into our intuition, tapping into our heart space, using our two ears, closing our one mouth, and listening, as we're saying, the 3 S's and the be still, be silent, and listen, and just listen, because we have all of the answers to really getting ourselves on a path to self-healing, just like you're talking about here, and I agree with. We have the tools, so it's obviously the intellectual and connecting that information with working on the gut biome, just like the mycelium in the forest, man. It's like science is even mimicking what the spiritual world has been putting out there for years, like mycelium, like the trees and the all the flora in the forest. I mean, if you could see underneath, again, as we started off, like going underneath, looking deeper underneath, it's all connected. We're all connected. It's all supporting one another. Like one sick tree can be supported by another tree 100 yards away through that mycelium, through that network, through energy ley lines, because there's a connection, there's intention, and that's really what I think we're missing. And a lot of the indigenous people I've sat with and learned from and interviewed, they say this all the time. It's like we're missing that connection with Mother Earth, with the elementals, with nature. And that's why I feel it's so important. Just you and I share that connection, man. We're outdoors. We're touching the earth, man. We're feeling it. We're breathing it, and we're getting healthier by it. So just as Oshana would say, don't take our word for it. Go out there, try it, feel it, and see how it feels to you.
Yeah. Well, yeah, this is really, we're here, we're like stewards of the planet in some way, we're given all this, all these resources, all this beauty and treasures on the earth that we get to. How do we manage this? How do we respect it? But we have a symbiotic relationship with the earth. I mean, the earth is constantly giving, constantly outpouring more beauty, more of this life force to keep us alive. And we too, we through our exchange with the earth, through our proper connection, we can also, in our love and our respect and our care, bring that through, people with gardening, people who love to garden or work with plants or trees. They're putting that felt experience back into the planet, and it feeds the planet. So, we're both having this exchange, but when we treat it as a material object that has no consciousness, that's when we're separating. We're separating from that healer within our own self, and no longer are we getting that exchange of energy from the earth that could propel us into a very healthy state, because we see it as an object, just to be used for our gain, and nothing is exchanged at all in a loving way. So when we open to seeing something's alive, there's a soul here on the planet, and this soul is very loving and supporting us and nurturing us in this home. Then we have a way of saying, how can I send this good energy back to the planet? How can I be a support to the planet as well? And in that giving, in that feeling of giving from that place, the earth sends back. It's like a tidal wave of energy of love back on top of you, and it's just one small step forward, and just 1,000 steps the earth comes back towards you.
So
and that's what we're missing. It's just, and it's willing to try it. What does it feel like to send this as you're gardening, as you're working with whatever plants or even animals, working with the animals on the earth? That is a way of connecting with, I know some people that harvest crystals and minerals and things, or even mushrooms or things. And I guess it's how it's being done and how the exchange is with the plant or the mineral, rather than just seeing it as an object to be, taken for the profit that it's going to give you,
So important. So
this is what like you said, the Native Americans, and they have that instinctual kind of belief system.
Well, if I could share a story about that. So exactly what you're saying, and the value of working with nature. So again, my spiritual name, Waska, comes from the Shishindi tradition, and the Shishindi are the people better known as the Apache, which is where one of my mentors, Oshana Fastwell, is Apache. So when I was on this journey of the waters, which went through 400 miles of the four corners, Colorado, Utah, Mexico, Arizona, her people, they used to do that on horseback, so it could take months. We did it in vehicles, in our ponies, in our four-wheel ponies. It took about 10 days. So anyway, one of the teachings was we were gathering sage. Okay, I think we were in Box Canyon maybe, but regardless, we were gathering sage, and she's like, in our tradition, we always give back. We never take all from Mother Earth. So if you're gathering sage, you're not going to grab the whole plant out and take the whole thing. You would take a few sprigs or whatever, and then give, in the tradition, just like the Lakota, they use tobacco, and maybe you put a prayer of gratitude and your intention in it and give it back. And she said, if you don't have tobacco, if you don't have anything else, you give of yourself. You give of your literal DNA and your intention, and you put your saliva there. Now, some people I've told that to, like, oh, that's, you're spitting on. Well, look at it how you want, but it's a give back. It's very personal. You're imbuing your saliva with an intention of gratitude, and you're giving it back to Mother Earth. And it's a beautiful, as you said, a symbiotic way of completing that circle of healing that sacred hoop that is not healed right now. So it's a beautiful way, to tap in. And also one more thing, we talked about like the Finhorn Garden before, which is a great community in Scotland, and there's a book and all that. If you've ever gardened before, anybody that's listening, there is such a feeling of, to me anyway, just like connection. And like, I'm living in an apartment now, so I don't have anything growing other than mint out on my balcony there, which I put in my water, and then I eat it afterwards. But it feels so good. The water tastes better, and just having that connection with Mother Nature, and growing your own food and your own vegetables. And even when my kids were young, I taught them. We had a garden in our house. We would put seeds in the ground, and we would add our saliva to it and say a little prayer of gratitude. And it was fun for the kids. And I don't know, man, our garden always grew and grew and grew. And it was nutritious. It wasn't, there was no pesticides on it. It was from the earth, from our hands. So there's something to it.
Yeah. It's a medicine of its own right. And I've also, there's a beautiful series of books. They were written from a tradesman in Russia. Anastasia, yes.
Awesome books, yes.
The ringing of the cedars.
Yes,
series.
yes.
And those are classic that really talk about that connection to the earth, and bringing that back through simple things like gardening. And I think it's a great reference. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. So this has been awesome, but we're getting close to time. So I want to ask you to leave our audience with any profound Peterisms on what you could offer to men and women listening out there. Just simple way that they could tap into their own, healing modalities. What would you say? What would you offer?
Well, I feel like we touched upon it. It's to kind of come back to, instead of looking for the saviors that are out in the world, looking for a particular person to be your hero that's going to save you or save the planet, look at it as you are that person, that you have everything within yourself, and that it's just waiting to be discovered, and for you to knock on that door within yourself. And for me, it's through the heart, to find that place where this is where you open up to unlimited possibilities. This is the place where you connect to the healer within. It can heal you of anything. It worked for me. It can work for you. It's there. And with that, once you start opening to that, it changes the nature of your relationships to the key people around you. You start seeing it in them, that same place you discover in yourself, and it starts up-leveling the relationships, so they're much richer and more whole. And then obviously connecting with the planet, there'll be the feeling of that connection that will open up to another dimension, and to the greater, the unknowable, the mystery, the great mystery. So once that connection is made within self, you'll be on the road to, I feel, a deeper, more holistic, healthier immunity, and a way of just opening to the wonders of what life has to bring through unlimited possibilities.
I love that, man. I love that. So it's tapping into self. It's tapping into, the energies that are out there, into spirit. It's connecting the dots, so to speak, and utilizing all these things in a holistic way.
Yeah. And I realize, for some, they've got busy lives, and sometimes they need to be guided back into that space. This is like where, if you're facilitated into that space and you have an experience, your own direct experience of what that's like, now you've got our internal reference place that you can come back to at some point and it becomes easier to be going back into it and being guided back into it, so it gets stronger and stronger. So that's, I feel like it's okay. Being facilitated sometimes is a step towards your own self-sufficiency.
Yeah.
And then eventually you can get it up and running, and you're taking off.
Yeah, I love that. I'm glad you offered that. And that's true. And especially in my experience working with guys, a lot of times guys don't want to ask for assistance, ask for help. And, we're both here to say, forget the man up, okay? Tap in and connect, because there's such gold in that, and exactly what you're saying, being facilitated. Some of the most successful people, which, is a very big part of the way guys think. It's the quantitative, like how much money do I have? Where's the success? What's the materialism? Some of the most successful people, which I'm sure guys could relate to this, they have coaches, they have mentors. They don't figure everything out for themselves. They're smart enough and intuitive enough to say, hey, somebody over here knows how to do this. Let me be facilitated. So I think that's a great point. Both Peter and I offer that. We're both in the Asheville, North Carolina area. As those who are listening to this program know, I do this show, the Way the Illuminated Warrior Talk Show. I facilitate and mentor men and help women also within relationships. Peter is offering Qigong and energy work locally, and connect with us. So, Peter, why don't you throw out your information there, so anybody who wants to connect with you has that available to them.
Yeah. Okay. So the best way to contact me would be through the website, which is my name, peterstekel.com. So it's Peter, STEKL.com. And from there, we could be in touch.
All right, beautiful. Well, I highly recommend anybody listening wants to connect with Peter, please do so. He's a beautiful person who's offering a lot of good healing modalities. Again, you guys who know me or are just tuning in, I do a monthly men's circle, retreats down here in Asheville, and just connecting really brothers to brothers. So, with that, I want to thank you for joining us today, Peter, and sharing your wisdom and your heartfelt intuitions and all. Wish you the best, my brother.
All right. Wish you the best too. Yes, absolutely.
All right. So let's continue to illuminate our paths with loving kindness.
All right. Absolutely.
Visit IlluminatedWarrior.com if you'd like to go deeper and find out more about what's available within the Illuminated Warrior Men's Transformational Community. Tune in next time for more candid conversations for men and women about men on the Way of the Illuminated Warrior Talk Show every Thursday at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. Eastern Time on Dream Vision 7 Radio Network. Until next time, illuminate your path with loving kindness.